Volume 7 is right around the corner, what with the first premiere scheduled for early November if production goes as planned, and the New York Comic Con panel next month, which, your dear Unicorn God may or may not be attending, thanks to a lovely dear friend. Suffice to say, with improvements seen in Volume 6, things seem to be looking up, with RWBY taking their time. That said, before we delve into today's topic, there are recent developments we should address. Namely, the revelations thanks to the hard work of Calaxin that Gray Haddock is, a horrible director. If you want to know the full details, you can go check out her video. I will link it below and also in a card that shall appear in the corner right there. From what we've discovered, all of the crunch time that we've heard about was due to Gray's leadership on the Genlock production team, which also unfortunately translated onto Nomad of Nowhere, especially with him taking the 2D animation funds for his own project, and most likely Camp. Things on RWBY seem to have been fine with him being an absentee producer, but now there has been a shift in management at Rooster Teeth with a new general manager named Jordan Levin, who was a former CEO of Awesomeness TV. Matt Hullum is going to be moving to a new role known as Chief Content Officer, while Bernie is going to be an executive producer, and Jeff Ramsey is going to become executive creative director. Oh, and Barb is now creative director. I am very proud right now. Hopefully with this new structure and with Gray gone, things can improve at Rooster Teeth, but we're going to have to keep a close eye on things. Unfortunately, because of the buyouts to full screen, Rooster Teeth over the years has become more corporate since, now they're under the Warner Media umbrella of ownership. But this is why, and I'm going to make all of you deaf by doing this, but I don't care, because no one else seems to be raising the possibility. I really do believe that the employees of Rooster Teeth, specifically the animators engaging in a strike and unionizing, could really help protect them going forward. Not to mention the waves it could potentially start given how much of a hellhole the entertainment industry is for employees, especially in the video game industry. I find it odd when people bring up the Warner Media thing and then go, oh, you're just corporate sellouts, burn the company to the ground, when really the most that will achieve is the end of the company, meaning the employees have to scatter to find new work, and they'll likely wind up at companies that treat them just the same, if not worse. That would be a band-aid on a gaping flesh wound, when really the solution should be to address systemic problems, aka unionization. Now, with all that workers seizing the means of production's talk out of the way, and with 25% of the comments below somehow thinking that advocating for workers' rights makes you a corporatist shill because let's blame the actions of the powerful white guys in suits with money on their employees, let's move on to something of a much lighter note. The top 7 things I'm hoping for and or looking forward to in RWBY Volume 7. RIP comment section. Ever since his introduction in Volume 4, virtually all of Oscar's moments of character development have been off-screen, from his decision to leave home, to him truly understanding what it means to be a huntsman and a hero, to him accepting his responsibility in the war against Salem, and to his moment of accepting his fate and going therapy thrifting. What all these points have in common is that these breakthroughs never occurred on screen. Oscar is not an inherently bad character. In fact, I do really like him. But the problem remains that he needs moments on the screen to shine and cement his arcs. Otherwise, it feels like we're passively going through the motions with no real weight to his developments. From all that we've heard, it seems RWBY has heard these complaints and is making sure to ameliorate the problem. Given that Salem herself is headed for Atlas, and that we'll be dealing with Ozpin's old friend Ironwood, it might be time for Oscar to step up and fully accept his destiny, and for Ozpin to get his shit together and talk everything through with Oscar with no lies or omissions. Not to mention there's also talk of Oscar discovering his semblance, which would be nice considering all he's really got in battle is the ancient you've been poked technique. After the fall of Beacon, we needed the small victories of volumes 4 through 6 to cement that even though things might be darker now, the story as a whole isn't going to be constant losses and pain. And thank the gods for that, because I would check out immediately. However, the darker elements of Volume 6, along with the triumph of Volume 5, most definitely point to Volume 7 being a big defeat for the heroes. We've always pointed out that strength will not bring victory, and who relishes more in their strength than the mighty Elysian military? Atlas is gonna fall. Probably literally, like right out of the fucking sky. And we very well might lose both the relics of knowledge and creation in one fell swoop. I've also had theories that Ruby and or Oscar might get kidnapped and taken to Salem's domain, where they'll get to learn more about the Big Bad directly, probably tortured, but we'll touch on that later. We're also likely to see some major character deaths this volume, both for heroes and villains. We're going to talk about Hazel in a little while, but if he turns against Salem with Emerald and Mercury, I can definitely see him dying trying to get them out. Crow, meanwhile, has had death flags for years now. It's a running gag. And as much as I hate the idea, Maria could meet her end as well. Both would effectively kill off Ruby's mentors, leaving her to continue the fight on her own, which she already kinda started in Volume 6. Ironwood could meet his end as a consequence of his hubris and paranoia, especially if he winds up antagonistic towards Team Ruby when they try to do things their own way. Will Team Junior die considering they have no plot armor? I hope not, but we certainly cannot rule it out. And while Team Ruby can't die, Volume 3 proved that they can be permanently injured. So, rip Ruby's depth perception. Just prepare your tissues for Volume 7, cause it's not gonna end well. One thing I'm very much excited for this new volume is further insight into characters who, up until this point, have received little to no depth. This isn't quite the same as Oscar, who's received arguably more damage from his major points of development occurring off-screen. These characters still have hope to prove interesting, albeit to varying degrees. The character who needs this the least, but could use a little bit more context and better framing for his motivations and backstory, is Hazel. It's clear we didn't get his full story from Ozpin, some of which has actually been revealed from Amity Arena, namely that Gretchen was his only family and his twin sister, and that Ozpin specifically sought her out and convinced her to try and become a huntress. That said, the big issue was how Hazel's backstory was revealed. I have discussed this in my video on my broad thoughts of the RWBY villains, link right here if you'd like to help me eat. But while some decent damage has been done to Hazel's intrigue, he can still turn out to be one of the better villains of the series if his motivations are fully explained and fleshed out. And we see his struggle in clinging to his irrational hatred of Ozpin and his devotion to Salem. Jeremy specifically wants him to realize his folly and turn against Salem, as I have mentioned before, possibly even dying while helping Emerald and Mercury escape, which I would love, but ouch. Watts and Tyrion, meanwhile, I'm fine with for right now, but they need a lot more depth, and in Watts' case, he just needs more to do. We need to know who they are, how they wound up in Salem's cabal, and why they're doing this. That said, I'm sure these will all be addressed given that these two are on their way to Atlas for Salem's grand plan, but if we don't get some answers soon, I'ma break some kneecaps. And then Cinder. Ooh, boy, oh boy, where to begin? First of all, we need to make it clear her repeating her mistakes is the point of her story. That she becomes more and more vicious and animalistic with each volume, and that she's basically digging her own grave in pursuit of power and vengeance. Backstory is not necessary, but we'd all very much like that, and her motivations. Those two are vital in turning her character around for the better. Vital.
God damn it, Bart!
With Salem on her way to Atlas, and with the Elysian military all gathered in one place ready for battle, to put it simply, shit gon' get lit. Now, whether the big fall of Atlas is gonna be a Volume 7 or 8 thing is debatable, but that city is gonna fall out of the sky, and we're all gonna be traumatized. It's essentially gonna be the fall of Beacon all over again, except now all of our characters are directly involved in the plot, which is nice. Whatever conflicts or themes are brought up during the Atlas arc, the Battle of Atlas will serve as a culmination for most, if not all, of those conflicts and themes. Whether it's Blake's rallying up a new White Fang, or Weiss taking down the Schnee monopoly and ending capitalism, what up y'all? Plus Salem herself getting her hands dirty. Ooh, you bet your ass my eyes are gonna be glued to the laptop screen when these episodes drop. Also, big battles are fun. Bring me violence. I would say rip the comments, but let's be real, they were gonna be that bad anyway, no matter what I said. So I'm gonna be true to myself and my heart. Fight me. Whether you like Bumblebee as a ship or not, the canon is the canon. And we're not gonna argue whether this was something they planned or something that organically happened over time. both of which are pretty commonplace when it comes to writing, and I can say that as a writer myself. Whether it's fan service, quote-unquote, or pandering. And we are definitely not making bees killing Monty jokes, because we at least try to be decent human beings here. The point is, if they're going in this direction, how do they make the most of it to aid the character arcs and story? Because believe it or not, romance actually does that. So far, I would argue that they've done that part pretty well despite the outcries of many a scary people on the internet. Remember that scene from Burning the Candle where Yang convinced Blake to practice some good old self-care and not exhaust herself over her mission and self-blame, and Blake hating herself for things her abuser did to her friends and running to try and keep them safe? Yeah, those things were pretty integral to both Blake and Yang's arcs. For Blake, it was learning to stand her ground and not let Adam isolate her from the people she loves, as abusers often do to gain more control over their victims, because, yeah, I can vouch that's how that works. Yang, meanwhile, well, she was honestly kind of fine before arm slicing, minus her abandonment issues. Similar to RWBY, Yang has had more of a flat character arc during the Beacon arc. A flat arc being where a character knows the truth of who they are and what they need, and their role is to assist in helping others discover their truths. In Yang's case, that was helping Blake. And no, a character with depth who has a flat arc is not equivalent to a character with no depth. Yang was lacking in depth in Volume 1, but Volumes 2 and 3 made up for that. And now with Adam defeated, and a milestone achieved in Blake stepping into her power and standing by her loved ones, and Yang fighting back against her trauma and fighting smart like her father told her, Blake and Yang are free to figure out just what their relationship is, romantic or otherwise, and will probably default back to Yang playing the supportive role as Blake reforms the White Fang. And hopefully with Blake having an honest conversation of why she ran. We still need that, but like Volume 6 happened in like less than a week, so like, And what better way to encourage positive honest human relationships than the daughter of the White Fang's old leader in a healthy relationship with a human? I smell change, my friends, and it's gay. Well, bisexual, but like, I guess gay in like the pan sense, and not like pan sense as in like pansexual, I mean like pan as in all, like the gays. Not to mention that since Blake and Yang have been following major Beauty and the Beast parallels, admittedly with both of them being able to fill both roles to some degree, I think we can expect maybe an Atlas Ball. Perhaps RWBY's answer to Tale as Old as Time. Please God, let it happen, please. Ooh, Renora and Bumblebee double date for maximum cuteness and also reinforce parallels. I would be down for this.
I'm not gonna break my promise. I know you won't.
Building off of my previous points, now that all of our characters have found themselves and come into their power, it's time to start laying the groundwork for new beginnings all around. Most notably for Blake to get the new White Fang going, and for Weiss to rally the Faunus workers in Mantle together to burn down the Schnee Manor and truly bring honor to her family name. So if we're looking at the different incarnations of the White Fang, Gira was all peace and love, man, while Sienna was like, necessary violence to achieve our goal of equality. And Adam was like, fuck equality. I will kill anyone, human or Faunus, who power blocks me. Blake ain't a fan of Sienna's approach, so perhaps she'll be able to find a new route where peaceful, non-violent tactics are used. But ideally the White Fang won't be as presumably passive and slow as it was under Gira's leadership. Weiss, meanwhile, sports a new Schnee emblem on her outfit, and it's pretty clear she means business.
God damn it, Barb!
But with Whitley in charge of the SDC, taking back the company would prove near impossible, which means taking it back might not be Weiss' route. Nicholas might have been a relatively not garbage person, but the SDC has always been a business first, and Jacques simply took that to its logical extreme. The foundations themselves have to be torn out, essentially meaning the destruction of the SDC as we know it. What might come after? Well, I am kinda high-key hoping Weiss starts up a worker co-op where the Faunus labor actually gets to sit on the company's board and have actual power so that they can claim ownership to their work and not get totally exploited by the humans. But I honestly don't know what she'll do. For all we know, she could basically revert back to Nicholas' approach without fundamental change to the company structure, which would be dumb, because then nothing keeps some asshole later on from pulling a Jacques ass again, but I digress. Regardless, these ladies are here to bring change, and if all goes well, the world will be much better off for it.
I just remember you being more of the quiet one. Not today. Checkmate!
So, you guys remember The Wizard of Oz, where, Spoilers for an 80-year-old movie, I guess. The Wicked Witch of the West had her flying monkeys kidnap Dorothy and bring her to her castle so she could try to force her to give them the shiny ruby slippers. Well, the slippers were silver in the original novel, so, goodbye, Ruby's depth perception. Salem has wanted Ruby in her clutches since Volume 4, and if she's headed to Atlas herself, she will have the perfect opportunity to capture her and bring her back to her domain. Perhaps Oscar could be captured too, but I think I would prefer Oscar having a lead of the rescue team for Volume 8 or 9, where they barge into the castle like, "Give us back our girl," before heading to Vacuo, but we'll see, I guess. But Ruby being captured and held captive in Salem's castle for a volume would not only serve as another fairy tale parallel, but also would work incredibly well for the story, the stakes, and Ruby's character arc. Her flat arc, I mean, which is not a bad thing. This time, Ruby gets time to know Salem firsthand, possibly to see whether Salem can be saved or her darkness eradicated, and even to learn the fate of her mother, Summer Rose, who will probably be voiced by Christina V. Oh yeah, Christina V is in RWBY now. Who else is hyped? But Salem wants all the Silver-Eyed Warriors dead because, their eyes can kill Grimm quite easily. And since their power comes from the love they have for the world and its people, and Salem's goal is to eradicate humanity's reasons for fighting back so she can take them down more easily, it would only make sense to kill off the incarnation of those reasons for fighting. But it also means RWBY might be in store for some, torture. For Salem to try and tempt her to the dark side to avoid hideous torture, or just make her give up and wallow in despair and apathy. And what better torture, which could fit Tyrion's little foreshadowing, eye for an eye, than giving Ruby and Cinder matching eye patches. I'm a terrible person. For a flat character arc, 3 things are vital. For the character in question to know the truth of the world from the get-go, for that character to inspire others to find their truth, or perhaps just dig their graves deeper because they can't handle the truth, Cinder. And for the character in question to maintain their stance on the truth by the story's end, albeit while going through trials and tribulations to have their resolve tested. And, I'm pretty sure torture would make for some damn good tests, which could make Ruby double down on her magical girl approach, leaving Salem truly shooketh. So, yeah, those are the 7 things, or at least 7 of the many other things I don't have time to list, but I'm absolutely excited for in RWBY Volume 7. If you enjoyed today's video, then I think you might enjoy my other content, such as my reviews and video essays on animation, be it RWBY or other series, and definitely my documentary series on the complicated history of the Winx Club franchise. And if you like what you find, remember to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. If you would like to further support myself and the channel, then please consider, if you are able to, pledging your support over on Patreon. Fair warning, there is a private Discord server called the Asshole Parade certain tiers give you access to, but the bot has been a dick in automatically inviting people, so if you have any issues, please message me privately and I will get you in as quickly as possible. As of right now, I am currently hard at work at one final round of revisions on my fantasy book before a final proofread. It has been delayed many, many times due to finances and outside circumstances, but I am determined to publish in 2020, so you can finally all enjoy it. It's called Diseneribus from the Ashes, and if you would like to learn more, you can check out the synopsis on the Goodreads page below, as well as the first chapter, all in the description below. I'm Unicorn of War, and this has been a shit show.
You think they're scared of your little ships? I've been out there and I've seen the things she's made, and let me tell you, they are